Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Hey, you're inside the Oval. Today we're back with the great Johnny Gamble, cycler extraordinaire, and we're here with Al Claiborne, trainer to the stars. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Great. So, Al, I hope you feel better to get through the show today, but I know there's a lot to share. And Johnny, long week at the shop, but I guess now we're back, and you're ready to cruise this morning. I know I'm on the way to Greensboro, North Carolina. It's track and field season, and it's the Junior Olympic Championship. So we're going to have some good times, good stuff. So let's talk about today's topic is eating to recover, part 2 of the ABCs of nutrition. So I'm going to start right into you, Johnny, and let's talk about recovery. Let's talk about practice. Typically, if we got a tough practice, kind of go in how long our window is, what kind of stuff that we can eat to help us recover.
All right. Well, okay. So one of the biggest things I definitely teach my athletes that recovery is one of the most overlooked windows of opportunity to grow. So you got optimally 2 hours, and what it does is your cells, your body is wanting to consume as much as possible to repair all the damage. So what you put into your system within those 2 hours is extremely important. I try to get my athletes to eat as close to their finish time as possible. So within the first half an hour, because a lot of it takes time to digest all these proteins, amino acids, the fatty acids, all those kind of things that are in meals or sports drinks, recovery drinks, and it takes about 2 hours to digest those. So eating within that window, but at the forefront of the window, that way your body has time to metabolize it within those 2 hours and actually take advantage of that 2 hour window opportunity.
So what is it that you want to eat?
The first thing I put in, I tell my athletes, man, is, right out of training, depending on the duration and everything else is calorie dependent as well. So a really light training day, you might want to go with a light recovery drink, and that would consist of some proteins, some faster carbohydrates, sugar-based, and you can up your calories the more you go into, like, the longer duration or the harder and more intense your workout is. A lot of these things, I have my athletes look for products that have very high-quality proteins, meaning whey isolates. Anything with a whey isolate in it is a lot better than anything with a whey concentrate. And I usually, depending on what kind of athlete, vegan, non-vegan, if they're a vegan athlete, I try to push them toward pea isolate, or rice proteins, potato proteins. The reason why is because they contain high amounts of leucine and arginine, as well as the other BCAAs, the branched chain amino acids. Leucine, the main amino acid that is involved in protein synthesis. So when you're looking for proteins, there's certain different types and forms of proteins that contain higher amounts of leucine. If you're going into a before workout, you want to look for a protein that has a higher amount of arginine. So the after workout, you definitely want to look at a protein that has a higher percentage of leucine.
Okay, now, Al, where do I get all this stuff? Put it in simple terms. Johnny, you're way over my head. So where would I get the protein that's digestible and it's going to be absorbed in the system if I go into the local grocery store?
Well, when he mentioned arginine, nuts and seeds, walnuts, Brazil nuts, cashews, peanuts, all of those are essential amino acids, but they also carry, you'll get those amino acids out of those. And those are, quick little snacks you can have right after a workout, or you can get them from, other sources like, meat, fish, eggs, soy, like you said, soy protein, casein protein. You can get it from a lot of different sources, but the ones I just mentioned are the one of several that you can grab.
Now,
All nuts
how
and seeds
much?
will have it.
How much of it? Is it based on my size?
Well,
Is it based on the workout, as Johnny
Yeah,
said?
they're going to be based on your size and level of activity. I mean, and muscle mass. I mean, it's the way I break it down is 1.5 grams per pound of lean weight that you'd give, that you look for as far as grams of protein, so that you're not over-consuming, but you're taking in enough to rebuild, restructure the body. And depending on the type of workouts and how vigorous, how deep, how many different body parts are involved in the training, you don't have to look in that much detail, but I would keep it at 1.5 grams per pound.
So if I put in 1.5 grams per pound, if I'm a bigger athlete, then obviously my quantity or the amount that I ingest is going to be significantly more than the smaller athlete that may be a distance runner. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
And is one better than the other? Am I looking for a brand, or am I looking for what when I go into the grocery stores to try to get these type of foods?
Well, variety is the spice of life, but there are some amino acids are more abundant in others. Like red meat will have the highest concentration of amino acids, and you would have, some of your vegetarian diets, like from lentils or a grain. So, fish is probably second in that line, next to chicken. So, it depends on availability and how well prepared, but your highest source of amino acid at the top of the ladder is red meat.
Now, is there a gender difference? Is there an age difference?
It's a size difference, more so than anything, and muscle mass. Muscle mass is supported by amino acids, and other factors that play into that, different vitamins and minerals, of course. But we can talk all night about that. But it's if you're talking just basic about keeping it real on amino acids, you're gonna look at where that source is going to come from, and the simplest source is stuff that you can pack really easy, which is going to be your nuts and seeds and some of your sport drinks like your soy whey and casein protein that you can grab bottled and take carry with you, and produce that you pick up from the store. So if you got the time to get home and cook after you have a vigorous workout, there's nothing wrong with some lean steak or a piece of salmon or something that's going to give you the volume of amino acids that you need to recover, but at the same time, who wants something heavy after a vigorous workout? So that's, for me personally, I'd rather have something that's simple, that's going to be mineral based, at the same time give me what I need in my protein. So that would be a sports drink or something like that.
Okay, we're going to come back after commercial break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. Thank you. Okay, we're back, gentlemen. So, Al, you talked about getting, going to the grocery store and picking up some nuts and some lean beef and some salmon. So, Johnny, let's say we don't have time to cook, our busy lifestyles. Where can we get the same type of recovery, nutrients rich, that may be artificial? So now we're talking about supplementation, sports energy drinks, or energy drinks, or sport drinks, let me say that. Where would I look for recovery drinks, and what would I look for, and what would I stay away from?
Well, regardless of what kind of athlete or whatever, it's no matter what, I always have my guy take a recovery drink, even if it's with a meal, because the recovery drinks break down so much faster than the meals. However, where you can go get them, you can get them in any of your dietary supplement stores. The main thing you're going to look for is really high quality protein. And like I was stressing before, it all comes down to the protein, the absorbability of it. There's certain proteins, if you buy them, they can cause gassiness and different things and discomfort. And that basically tells you that they're not absorbing in the body because the GI tract is retaining water, and it wants to get rid of whatever you just put in. So when you're looking for a good quality protein drink, I don't really necessarily stick to any one specific brand, but I turn it immediately to the supplement packs. And if it has the terms whey concentrate on it, I stay away from it. I like to use faster absorbing proteins, whey isolates, hydrolysate. Hydrolysate is a word that you can look for, ion exchange, whey, anything with whey peptides of leucine or branched chain amino acids. All these are very, very high filtered and fractionized proteins that break down very, very easily in the body and cause a lot less GI discomfort than some of the cheaper brands if you went into some of the big box stores and got a less expensive protein. So when you're going in to get these proteins into any of the stores, you definitely want to put your money into a more quality drink than go the cheaper route. The other thing I looked at it supplemented with is if you can find one that's actually truly got extra branched chain amino acids. The branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and L-valine. Leucine is the one that shows the most promise with protein synthesis in research and science. However, isoleucine and valine also add to that and for the protein synthesis. So when you're looking at a protein drink, those are the main components you want to look at. I like to go with protein drinks that actually have real sugar in them. A lot of the bodybuilding industry, there's a misnomer that sugar is really bad for you. In that recovery window, it's not necessarily bad for you at all. The main thing that's going to trigger recovery is getting an insulin spike. When you're after training, your insulin is sitting at an almost dormant or non-existent level. So insulin is one of the main hormones that actually pushes protein, sugars, and all that kind of stuff in to rebuild muscle tissue. So the best way and most natural way to do that is by consuming some sugar. The sugar afterwards is not going to cause any fat retention whatsoever because it's going to be gobbled up by your body, your muscles, your liver, your central nervous system, and all that kind of stuff. So that's not something that even weight-conscious people need to worry about. I think that's probably the main components that I would look at.
So could I use that type of technique, for instance? Many of our athletes have multiple competition days, so they may be competing 2 or 3 days, not just one event. So is that the same kind of thought in between, let's say, competition on day one or some type of semifinal and then some type of final competition the day after?
Absolutely. Every single workout I usually follow, even on a training, like a competition day that you have a competition in the morning, competition in the afternoon where there's a big separation.
Yes.
I like to get a recovery drink right in after that, have a nice, easy meal on the stomach, drink plenty of water to make sure all that stuff gets into the system very nice. And then that way you can roll into your second competition, and then you do the same exact thing. You might not want to get a whole bunch of calories in a 2-a-day competition, but if you're doing just 1-day competition, at the end of the day, I get as many calories you can digest at once. You get the higher quality proteins, all that kind of stuff, because the next day you're going to feel a lot fresher.
So, Al, we seem to be
Yep.
in between competitions or exercise routines, we seem to be in proteins. Is there a balance between proteins and carbohydrate that you would recommend to anybody out in the audience?
Yeah. Well, it depends. I have clients that I work with that have different experiences depending on their type of training. You know what kind of demands you're putting on the body. Some days, you're doing heavy aerobic, activity, heavy cardio activity, and you got a lot of pounding going on with weight training and whatnot. You want to look at that window of a good 24 to 48 hours when you are breaking down the different nutrients you're gonna put on your training table, so that your food will digest, your glycogen stores can be replenished, your amino acids can be synthesized and work into the different systems where they can be utilized to generate energy or to repair muscles that have been broken down. That's how I create the ratios. But on heavy training days, if we're doing a lot of weightlifting, those days prior to, I'll do a 60-30, 10% ratio of fats, protein, and carbohydrates. It'll be heavier on the amino acids, heavier on the protein, lighter on the carbohydrates, and moderate on the fats. And then the days that we're going to do, get into some heavy cardio, and I'll increase the fat intake, increase the carbohydrate intake, and then back off on the protein, around 20% on the protein, and roll those other percentages into the carbohydrates and fats. And then, without getting into oxidative profiles on the individuals, because that's a heavy conversation, but people do utilize different these nutrients differently depending on, you get into endurance athletes versus more fast twitch athletes. So that's another conversation that we could probably get into. But that's how I break up the ratios of protein, carbohydrates, and fats.
So when you have the heavier loads, so you said 60-30-10?
Yeah, I would do a 60-30-10 on the post diet. Like after you're gonna plan out the days that you're gonna train what and how heavy is the training gonna be on weight versus doing endurance training, or are we going to it depends on the type of training you're doing. On the days that we are getting into it, if it's going to be an endurance day, if we're going to be out, going for a long run, or I have them in the pool doing laps, swimming, then I'll increase the carbohydrates and fats. And then the days that we hit weights, I'll increase the protein intake post training, meaning that I'll go heavier on the protein by 20%, and back off on the carbohydrates and the fats.
Okay, now sounds like
I'm hoping I made that clear, but it sounds complicated to me on my end.
No. Actually, it's
to you guys.
It seems pretty simple. Now, let me ask you this: regardless of the stimulus, either we're resistance training or plyometric or high load, high volume. For Johnny in his world, it's a lot of cycling. We're building up lactic acid. How can we neutralize that lactate buildup, with an alkaline diet? Because now I guess based on lifting heavy, we're creating, some different things in the blood system. We're increasing that lactate.
Well, okay. Well, when you look at the different types of food, you have your anabolic foods, you have your catabolic foods, and
can you spend a second or two explaining what anabolic is and catabolic is?
Okay. Anabolic is building. Is is a food that's going to add building blocks to the diet. Amino acids typically are part of a anabolic diet, meats, protein, things like that. Catabolic are going to be your fruits and high glycemic index vegetables, potatoes, a lot of your starchies, things like that. That's a high alkaline diet, and those are the ways I typically try to neutralize the acids that are built up from the breakdown of amino acids and to create better protein synthesis when you talk about building muscle and maintaining muscle mass. On the other side of it is water. Good hydration is a way to neutralize a lot of acid buildup, and that's pretty much the end all. But also too, you got good sources of antioxidants that are helpful in neutralizing the body of toxins and whatnot.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to cut to commercial, and we'll be right back.
Does your business need an industry voice? If so, contact Oliver Jackson, I Got That Voice, at jazzmix2001@yahoo.com. We can give you content for promos, voicemail, documentaries, movie trailers, podcasts, and more. If your business needs a voice, feel free to use mine. Contact Oliver Jackson at jazzmix2001. That's JAZZLICKS2001@yahoo.com.
We're back. Johnny Gamble, great cyclist extraordinaire. Al Claiborne, trainer to the stars. So, Johnny, I wanted to get back to you. So now Al talked about the good quality foods going into that engine. Now and he talked about anabolic and catabolic. And in the last week or two, at least on the track and field side, we've had some athletes that got in trouble taking supplements in anabolic steroids, that sort of thing. And, of course, the baseball players that got in trouble with the steroid issue. So now, Johnny, kind of clear, how do we keep the athletes out of trouble, out of the weeds, as they say, in regards to supplementation and facilitating recovery?
Well, making sure that you're buying really clean products, number one, from very trusted sources. If you used a brand for a while and it's worked for you and you've been tested before, and there's a good chance that they're a good, clean company. Safeguarding all your dietary supplements, regardless of what it is, by making sure that they're tested by a outside source like a BSCG, which is Banned Substance Control Group, HFL, or NFS. All three of those certify dietary supplements to show that there's no cross-contamination with banned substances of dietary supplements. So that's the biggest thing. If you're at that level and you've got to take a pee test or give a blood test or anything like that to where they're going to test you for banned substances, I highly recommend getting your supplements either tested yourself and pay for that, or buy only supplements that have already been tested to show no cross-contamination.
Okay, you talk about clean, but where do I obtain clean? How do I assure it's clean? I mean, I'm going to the same sources. I'm going to the internet. I'm going to some of these supplement stores. How do I make sure what I'm ingesting in my body is clean? And then next thing I know, after you answer that question, I want to transition into the creams, because from what I read, Tyson Gay put on a cream? And let's talk about that after you answer the first question.
Okay. Well, honestly, the only way is to make sure that it's tested by one of those three, that it doesn't have cross-contamination in it. That's the only way you can guarantee it.
Is that something that I would find on the label?
That is something you should find on the label, on the website, somewhere within the company structure. It should have a lot number on every single dietary supplement that comes out. Make sure that lot was tested. If you're really, really concerned, you can call up the company and get a certificate showing that with that lot number that was tested, that was clear. Because I personally get the dietary supplements I formulate for my company. I get them done by BSCG, Banned Substance Control Group, and every time I get a supplement batch tested, I get a letter confirming that it doesn't contain any of the contaminants on the WADA list. So anybody who is, purchasing those, if they have an NFS, HFL, or a BSCG symbol on there, you could call that company and make sure that the lot number was cleared for banned substances. Because, I hate to say this, but there are companies that may abuse the privileges of using those seals, and they put them on their labels and their websites when the product lots weren't tested themselves. So that's the way to ensure for athletes to make sure you buy one, get the lot number, call the company up, make sure they provide you paperwork with that, and then you can ensure that product is clear and free.
So it's a lot number. And now let's transition into the creams. Last couple athletes that got busted for PEDs screamed that their massage therapist or their physical therapist gave them some type of cream, and typically some type of recovery cream to help foster flushing the system or support their recovery. Now, on the same token, how can I confirm that those creams that my skin is absorbing is clear and pure? And what do I want to stay away from?
It'd be the same exact process. I mean, your skin absorbs as much as just like your diet absorbs. When you put something down your mouth, it's going to absorb directly into the body. Your skin absorbs everything that's put onto it as well. So creams that are rubbed into, and if you're going to be on the safe side, I would definitely make sure they're tested. I don't know. I didn't read about the Tyson Gay. I thought he was taking a different thing. I didn't know he took a cream that had the stimulant in it.
Yeah, that's what I read in the Sports Illustrated article, that there was a cream from a local doctor here that he used, and the doctor said it was food-based. And that's where I'm going to come back to Al in just a second, but the doctor said it was food-based, so he wasn't sure how the contamination came through the lotion that he gave him. But then also, he doesn't track the lots. He doesn't have them tested. So there's some quality control issues probably there that can't be proven. Don't know how we got to that point, from the doctor's perspective.
And they're even, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. With dietary supplements, there is a process that's regulated. All the ingredients that we order, when I formulate a supplement or I make a supplement or develop one, the ingredients that I'm using have already been run through the FDA. Unless you're introducing a brand new ingredient to the market, the FDA has already run through all these and ensured them safe. Now, there are a lot of things that are coming up on the market brand new that aren't flagged yet. You got to look out for those kind of things that if you haven't heard of a certain type of ingredient, or there's also labeling, mismarketing, and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to creams, the regulation isn't nearly as strict. So there's a lot more open window for cross-contamination of anything. One thing that's in creams that's found very, very common is cortisone. Cortisone can be found in a lot of recovery creams, which could flag an athlete, illegal with banned substances. I mean, it's a cream that you can go and buy in any kind of grocery store or whatever, but if it has cortisone in it, it's a de-inflammatory is all it is. but it could be enough to trigger a positive test. So you got to be really, really careful when you're using creams, just like you do with dietary supplements.
Now, I was watching Sports Illustrated. I mean, not sport. I was watching ESPN today, and there were 3 or 4 commercials that talked about low T, and they had DHEC, and we know DHEC is on the banned list. Now, is there
DHEA?
DHEA, I'm sorry. DHEA.
Yeah.
So, no, Al, we know that that's supposed to be a precursor, right? So, is there, in order to increase the testosterone levels that help facilitate, lean body mass or increase muscle mass, naturally from food, how can we get people or athletes to look at it from the food that we get from the ground that's going to keep them out of trouble?
Okay, you're talking about...
And there were the testosterone levels.
Food as to boost testosterone levels?
Yes. Is that possible?
Foods that boost testosterone levels.
Glad that's your question.
And we don't want everybody to go out and go to the store and buy all that testosterone boosting food.
No, I don't think there's anything that's going to boost it. I think there's some things that can support it. L-ornithine, L-arginine, lysine, those are you can get those essentials from food, but they're supporters of protein synthesis, but they don't. I wouldn't say they would boost it. What boost testosterone is really what the body determines what that is. I mean, that comes from your brain. Your body tells that spigot when to turn on and turn off. I mean, you're not just going to all of a sudden eat something and you're growing muscle, or all of a sudden you're becoming fast and you're able to, leap tall buildings with a single bound. I just think that that is a part of a support of training and what you're focused on. It has a lot to do with what you're commanding your body to do.
Right, through food.
It supports it.
Now, through food, when you say you support it, now through food, Al,
right.
What is it? Mm-hmm. We know that the normal process to facilitate that synthesis. We know that the foods that you discussed that are going to help facilitate that. What specifically? What in our regimen? So I know if I'm going to increase my volumes, increase my load, there's going to be hormonal fluctuations in my system. We know that I've got to replenish the nutrients in my body, and what food specifically, it may not increase testosterone level, but we want to make sure that the body's getting the right signal, just like you said, in the brain. So how can we take food that's going to send the right signal? It's going to help transport.
Okay, foods that are going to... Well, food is going to be a supply. Food is going to supply the components to build the amino chains. And you would need a complete amino acid to do that. And you would get that from... the protein sources that we mentioned earlier. Beef carries the highest source of amino acids out of the meat group, or red meat. Then you would have, some of your, for vegetarians, nuts and seeds, lentils and rice make a complete amino acids, beans and rice. And for light affairs, eggs and rice would be a complete amino acid. But those things are supporters. They give the body what it needs in order to manufacture the amino chains. They wouldn't stimulate growth. I've never heard of anything that you would eat and all of a sudden it would stimulate your growth factors. I mean, it could support it.
I would think maybe salmon would help because it has essential oils and lipids and cholesterol. Like cholesterol, what people don't realize, testosterone is made out of cholesterol.
Right.
So things that can support your HDL levels, things that are supportive of the good cholesterol, would be a good source.
And what are those? That's the magic word. What's going to support my good cholesterol?
A lot of the things that he was mentioning before, the fat, the nuts, seeds, different things like that. Avocados are awesome. Salmon is a great fish. They have great oils in them. Stuff like that.
Any of your migrant fish, inbirds, duck, geese, quail, any of those migrant animals have good sources of fatty acids that would help with that, and a lot of your vegetable sources as well. Like you said, avocado. Avocado is a great source of cholesterol, good cholesterol supporting fatty acids.
How do you prepare it so you don't ruin those nutrients? So avocado, how would I prepare avocado? Cook it, boil it, eat it natural.
You'd get it. You want to get it as fresh as possible. You want to get it ripe. Fruit or vegetables are picked from their source. You actually start losing the quality of nutrients that are in them as time goes by. So as close to harvest as possible. And if you have your own avocado tree, even better.
So, so less ripe, more ripe, or somewhere in the middle?
I would say somewhere in the middle. It's when it's ripe for harvest. I mean, most of what stores and markets do, if they're transporting it, they pick it just before it's ripe, and it ripens in transport. But at the same time, you're losing a lot of valuable nutrients in transport because it's ripening off the vine. It's always better if it ripens on the vine.
So if you're growing your own food, you let it get ripe, then you consume it.
Yes.
And then
that's optimum. I mean, it's
now.
And crazy enough, I mean, not all things organic process in the same way, in the same manner. Some nutrients actually become stronger as food starts to decompose. Some amino acids, some fatty acids actually change as time goes by. I mean, it's hard to, and I can't tell you exactly which items they are in particular, but I can tell you that not all things are the same once they're picked. I mean, some things, like I said, the nutrients, some of them they build up in it as they start to peak to ripeness. Some are better eaten just before they ripen. And it depends on the nutrients.
Give some examples of ones that get better with time and then the ones that you should get early in the game.
Okay. Well, for instance, grapes, for instance, prunes, plums. They have different compounds if they are dried, like potassium. Potassium is higher in those fruits if they're aged. Plums, apricots, raisins, things like that, as an example.
Now, Johnny, supplementation and consumption. I know some athletes are finicky about what they eat. They don't necessarily like a lot of fruits and vegetables. They don't eat a lot of green stuff. Where is that balance between supplementation and consumption of the proper foods, quality foods?
Diet is primary, 100%. No matter what athlete I take on, even when I'm running custom athletic nutrition, man, it's like I do these custom supplements, but the main thing I talk about most of the time with my athletes is diet. You got to get your diet down first. Supplements is an additive. Now, I do have particular athletes that are, less likely to eat greens. They just don't like vegetables. And in that case, I usually do steer them toward a green food drink. That way they can get their greens in, and it doesn't have to be as painful, I guess, as they make it out to be. I love green. I love all kinds of foods, so it's never been an issue for me. So I can never possibly relate to someone that doesn't like vegetables. I can understand certain vegetables, but with supplementation, I try to really keep that at a real minimum. I get athletes that do take a lot of supplements during certain times of the year and different things like that, but I really try to keep that to a minimum as possible, just because I think your diet can, pretty much provide you with almost everything you're going to need. But the only thing with that is you got to be extremely disciplined, and actually in both art forms, really, and within diet and supplementation, you've got to be pretty disciplined to get performance out of your body. You got to really watch what you eat and with real food, and then with supplements, you got to be extremely careful, extremely disciplined, and regimented with both sides. But I don't know if there's a percentage balance that's ideal. I think it just really comes down to the athlete and what their personal preferences are.
Does it change over time as the athlete ages? Does that change? Do the supplementation change in order to facilitate the change in their bodies? The dietary supplements change for sure. Younger athletes, older athletes have a little bit more joint problems, so I'm steering them more toward the glucosamine chondroitin MSMs, different things like that. And some of the younger athletes, it's more about just the protein recoveries and creating an anabolic growth pattern and getting them in good dietary practices. So, when I start with an individual, I've had athletes that they lived on fast food and then they wonder why their performance got stagnated. So, my focus has to really focus on their diet. And it's usually the younger athletes that have the worst diets. I think as we get older, we get more open to tasting new things and all that kind of stuff. So, it really comes down to the individual. It's kind of hit or miss. I've met young athletes that got a diet perfected, and then it's just a few kind of fine tweaks on getting the right recovery drinks in or pre-meals and pre-drinks in and stuff like that. But diet is primary, and it's all personal. So diet is primary. So we're going to wrap things up, and I'm going to ask you both the same question, but from your different perspectives. So Al, we're going to start with you. I'm at practice. What do I need to bring with me in order to facilitate?
What do you need to bring with you?
Yep. What do I need to bring at practice?
Pick me up.
Nutritionally, I've had a challenging practice. What do I need to have? What are the essential foods? I would
have a good source of protein, a good source of a protein drink. I would have I'd have a small baggie of dried fruit, apricots, like I mentioned, some dates, some raisins, and maybe even some prunes. I would definitely pack some purified or distilled water. I would have and a fresh fruit source, like an apple. and some oranges to bring my blood sugar back up.
Johnny?
Pretty much it.
Johnny, what would I bring?
For recovery, I mean, I'd probably say about the same thing. I mean, it's making sure that you have the dry powdered recovery drink in your bag, ready to go, so you can mix it immediately after training. And some natural food sources, like he was saying, a lot of water. And you should be doing that, as you're jumping in the car or heading home or whatever it is, you should be sucking down that recovery drink and then follow that up immediately with a really good, solid meal.
Gentlemen,
And, I mean,
you're out of the Oval. Thank you very much. I love this, and I look forward to doing the face-to-face. And Johnny, you may not know this. I talked to Gwen yesterday, and we talked about going to Al's place and actually doing, how do you prepare